Um, Let me turn my camera on as well. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. I just wanted to briefly cover what's new in Blacklight 9. Um, Back in March 2023, we released version 8 of Blacklight, and just last month in November, we've released Blacklight 9. And most of the reason for doing this is we need to kind of keep up with the cadence that is Rails, because Rails puts out a release about every year, and if we don't kind of keep up to date, it just won't work for people who are trying it with the latest version of Rails. Uh, oh, Um, so I think the biggest change for developers here is sort of embracing all of the change that's come in Rails in their packaging of CSS and JavaScript assets. So Rails has changed from using sprockets to Webpacker, and then lately to like CSS bundling and JS bundling. Um, so we've sort of gone a step further and saying we use Sass to build our um, CSS styles, but we don't need the users who are implementing Blacklight to do that if we just pre-compile it and ship it. We're certainly leaving that as an option, but now in Blacklight 9, we no longer require you to have a Ruby runtime and a JavaScript runtime at the same time. Typically, just having the Ruby runtime is going to be enough. And you can use all of the up-to-date CSS bundling and JS bundling that Rails has if you have the need to sort of go a step further with your customizations and builds. Another thing we've sort of embraced is CSS styling with CSS variables, or sometimes called custom properties. This has sort of come to the web in all the browsers, probably in like the last 4 years. So something we really couldn't embrace in Blacklight um, I'm sorry, Blacklight 8 quite as much, but it's really there. It's really built into Bootstrap 5, and we sort of just go along with that to extend it for Blacklight. If you notice, if you're looking at the properties, you'll notice that most of them are prefixed with dash dash BL, BL for Blacklight. This sort of follows the pattern that Bootstrap uses, dash dash BS for Bootstrap. So that allows us to do the styling, the customization you want to do in CSS without having to have that JavaScript runtime to build a Sass bundle. So Bootstrap 5, we fully embraced Bootstrap 5. In version 8, we had 4 and 5 was optional. Now we've completely, you must have Bootstrap 5. That allows us to use some of the patterns that are only in Bootstrap 5 and some of the advanced customization there. And it allows us just to have a simpler software. Accessible to all. We really think accessibility is a very important attribute of Blacklight. We've worked and done a bunch of fixes for accessibility. Some of it like is reordering elements such that the screen reader works a little bit better. Um, and a lot of fine tuning of ARIA attributes just to make sure that we have the right ones in the right spots and we don't have ones where they actually don't belong. We've continued the path in embracing view components. We've upgraded to the latest version of view components and added a few more view components and made some more view components customizable. So like if there's a specific area that seems like a common place for customization, we just put it into configuration. So you can say use this view component instead of the default. Of course, with a major release, we are always concerned about backwards compatibility, and a major release is a place where we say it's okay to break backwards compatibility. That's what the major version means. So that means we're just doing some cleanup, getting rid of code that is not used or was deprecated. Um, this is important because it makes Blacklight simpler and manageable, actually. Um, Over the years we've built up a lot of code that might be used in rare occasions or isn't the way we'd prefer you to use it anymore, and once every couple of years we kind of have to toss out the old stuff so that we have a manageable amount of code. And so if you're upgrading, I recommend running the latest version of 8, checking if you have any deprecations and fixing those first before you upgrade to version 9. Another effort that we've done but have not completed is taking a look at Elasticsearch. A number of people have said, solar is kind of hard to deploy. It's not something you can just go to AWS and say, run me a solar. But Elasticsearch is sort of more of a commodity in that way. And it would be really cool if we could run Blacklight with Elasticsearch. So this effort was started like almost, 8 years ago by Misty DeMeo, I believe. She was never able to finish it before she changed jobs, and it kind of sat for a while. But it's still sort of been in the background, being a thing we want to work on. And so a lot of the refactoring has been towards making it agnostic as to what we have in the back end. So I'd say this is ongoing work. It's not there yet, but it's certainly been a goal. And a lot of this might help us with things like dense vector searching or hybrid searching. So we can have our existing keyword-based searching as well as embedding searching. So for semantic search. I also want to say thank you to some new contributors that showed up in this last release. I'm not going to try to pronounce these because some of them, yeah, they're not pronounceable. But thank you to these people, and thank you to everyone who continued committing and adding your time. We're always looking for people to, help with testing, help with accessibility testing, help with documentation, help with coding. Please, I guess, show up to the monthly meetings and find out how you can contribute. And thank you again. If you're interested in helping us out, our repo's here, and we're always on the Code for Lib Slack. And so I just have a question sort of for the rest of the conference. Please throw your ideas in the Slack. What do you want to see in Blacklight? What are important to our community? I think this is something maybe we should have a brief discussion on later. But I feel like Blacklight 9, we didn't do a ton of new features. A lot of it is let's keep up to date with Rails. Let's keep up to date with all the versions of our dependencies. Let's tidy up. But, as far as new features, are there any that we're missing? Are there any we should be looking into? And I don't know if we have time for questions since this is a lightning talk, but if you do, I guess just hit us up on Slack. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Justin. I think since it's 10 minutes into the slot, defer questions. I know that there is some time later in the State of the Blacklight community discussion to talk about Blacklight 9, or we can circle back at the end of this lightning talk session if we've got time. Also, so Beth, are you ready to queue up for your talk on fighting the bots?
Yes. Let me share my screen. Okay. So I'm Beth Crumpton. I am the Senior Systems Administrator at Emory University Library Technology and Digital Strategies. I assume that everybody kind of knows what the bot problem is. We got it. We have most of our stuff in AWS, so we use AWS WAF or Web Application Firewall to deal with it. Just want to briefly go over a high level of what it looks like architecture-wise, how much it's costing us, a good way that we've found to configure it, and how well it's working for us. So from a high level, it's pretty easy, assuming you have some basic knowledge of AWS. You just attach it to an application load balancer, send the traffic onto your EC2 instances, and away you go. It's a little hard to figure out what things will cost in AWS. However, I can tell you that for 3 services over the past 6 months, it has been costing us approximately $250 per month. There's a lot of rules that you have to configure yourself out of the box. It doesn't do much for you other than give you graphs. And one of those graphs does tell you what your most frequently hit rules are. What we found to be most effective is rate limiting. So for us, we send you a CAPTCHA if you send us 300 requests in about 2 minutes. I don't know if there's any perfect way to derive what a good rate limit is. Uh, this works for us. Our applications are kind of on the slow side. We can only respond about one request per second. This seems to be working. We do have a fairly extensive list of IPs that we block. We spent a lot of time working on this approach, just blocking by IP and IP range. This turned out to not really be the correct approach. It's not very sustainable. It's very whack-a-mole, and people, by which I mean me, have a tendency to get way too trigger happy and start blocking way more than necessary. And it is also extremely tempting to look at blocking entire geographic regions, which is a problem in that, our mission is to make public data public. We don't want to deepen the digital divide. And of course, we have a fairly diverse research population at the university. So we don't want to run afoul of any federal laws about um, discrimination based on country of origin, because that would be a problem, even if in the current political climate in the US, sometimes it seems like laws don't matter. But nonetheless, they exist. And what we've really found out is that you don't really have to build all your own rule sets. You can just buy them from other people. There's a number of companies that provide these via Marketplace, and they're fairly easy to buy. Um, we just get a basic set from AWS itself. It costs $10 a month. Um, Straight out of the box, it blocks pretty much anything that looks like it might possibly be a bot, and that did include our own monitoring. So we spent quite a bit of time trying to tune that so that we could still get our monitoring to work. As far as how well this works, uh, well, we implemented it in December of 2023, and our last bot-related outage was in May. So you might get from this that configuration has been a journey and a lot of trial and error. However, the good news is that our last bot-related outage was May 2025. So it's been a while since anyone's woken up about this. And, this is just a nice graph showing one event where we had a misbehaving IP that suddenly started sending us thousands of requests. And after a few minutes of this, WAF caught it and it just went out. So that was nice. So that's the basics. I think we're holding questions till the end. You can hit me up on Slack. You can send me an email if you have any questions about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. I think we might have time for one question, maybe two, if we just if there's anybody here that wants to ask any questions of Beth.
Hey Beth, I'm Jason from Cornell University. Have you used JA3 and JA4 fingerprinting at all in your WAF rules?
I believe we have one JA4 fingerprint rule, but it's not hit as often. I really need to do an audit through our rules of what's getting hit because, yeah, I have heard of that.
Yeah, one thing that we found recently is that if you rate limit based on a JA3 tag instead of a JA4 tag, that it does a really good job with bots, especially ones that are like spread across a ton of IPs. And
That
for
is really good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, for that rate limit, I just analyzed a bunch of logs and tried to see where our big pain points were, and then set that rate limit at like 1,000 every 5 minutes, and that allows for some crawlers, but it makes them behave.
That's good to know. Thanks for that.